Well, hello. I hope you're enjoying this absolutely fabulous summer weather we've been having. Now, this is another inspiring interview where I interview people who are featured in my new book, Misadventures of an Accidental Activist, where I chart my lockdown experiences in Spain and Italy, and also returning to the UK, where everything wasn't quite as I expected. Now, as soon as I even contemplate doing a video, gale force winds start, so I hope the wind isn't picking up on the microphone too much. But anyway, let's go over to my interview with Tom Nelson, podcaster and producer of Climate the Movie, where he reveals his lockdown experience. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube or Substack, you'll get the first 20 minutes, but paid subscribers to my Substack will be able to watch the full 50-minute interview. Or if you're not on Substack and want to watch the full thing, you can purchase it via my website, rachelmatthews.uk. Links will be beneath this video. So I'm joined today by Tom Nelson, who has an amazing podcast on all things climate related on YouTube, which I recommend you check out if you haven't already. And he's also the producer of Climate the Movie. Tom, welcome.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for agreeing to do this interview. Now, you've read my book, The Misadventures of an Accidental Activist, so you've very familiar with my journey of waking up and realizing the world wasn't quite as I thought it was. And that was COVID was the trigger. How about you? Did COVID trigger you, or were you already aware of things before that? What was your story?
Well, yeah, I would say it didn't completely trigger me in that I was a climate skeptic way before that. I called myself a normie until about 2005. There was actually this ivory-billed woodpecker thing that came up. And as I don't know if I've talked to you about this before, but I'm a bird watcher, and there was this huge announcement of the ivory-billed woodpecker has been rediscovered. It got enormous publicity here in the U.S. that it was announced. There was a paper with 17 authors, and it was announced, I think, in Washington, D.C. to great fanfare. NPR talked about it, and when people heard about the rediscovery of this woodpecker, they were so overcome with emotion that they would pull over to the side of the road and cry and stuff. But as a bird watcher, I checked into that, and it was a complete crock, 100% crock. They never saw it. They had pictures. They had a 6-pixel ivory bill with 2 blacks, 2 whites, and 2 blacks. They blew up this picture. That's what they thought was a picture of an ivory bill. The whole thing was incredibly farcical. And that made me think that if this could make it through peer review, what else are they lying about? And then someone emailed me and said, it's similar to the whole global warming thing, that if you dig into the evidence for yourself on that, same deal. It's a house of cards. They have nothing to back up this whole claim that the Earth is getting too warm because of CO2. So at that point, I started digging into the global warming thing. And I've spent hours most days since then, since about 2006, actually, looking into the global warming thing. But then COVID brought it a whole nother level of waking up for me.
Wow. So why do you think they bothered doing the woodpecker thing? What was the point of that?
I think it was amazing amounts of groupthink. I think the people involved actually believed that they had rediscovered it. And once they got it in their head that they had rediscovered that, then people were down there in that same woods and they would see something fly by. And because of groupthink, they think, well, someone has already seen this extinct woodpecker here. That one kind of looked like the extinct woodpecker. So people actually got it in their head that they had seen it. So I don't think that they were trying to pull off a scam. I think there was so much groupthink there that they believed this crazy thing. And from the outside, as you looked at it, you could see that it was crazy. So it's amazing that that got through peer review. But I think there's a lesson for us because I think there's enormous amounts of groupthink elsewhere too. I think in COVID and for sure in global warming. Hardly anybody would look at the evidence right now and say, wow, it's the weather's getting worse and CO2 caused it. But there's this whole amount of groupthink that people believe, even climate scientists believe in it because they think someone else has already proved it. They're trusting someone else. So they're thinking as a group. But all you have to do is think for yourself, and you can see that this global warming thing is a total crock, too.
Yes, I mean, it didn't
Yeah.
take me long to research it. Now, because I was traveling doing my whole digital nomad thing, I was very fortunate, I missed all the programming because I didn't have English TV, didn't have access to English newspapers. So I had whole 10 years of none of this. So I completely missed
all of the CO2 is, and it's all your fault, causing global warming. So in 2005, how far down the rabbit hole did you go, and how long did it take you to realize this is rubbish?
It didn't take very long. I just started almost on day one. As I started looking on the very first day, I could see I had been kind of a casual believer of it before that, but I started looking at stuff about crop yields and looking at the different representations of the graph of temperatures in the last few hundred years. There were wildly different interpretations where the medieval warm period was shown as much warmer than today. And then there's Michael Mann's hockey stick where he kind of erased all of that. And it was the handle of the hockey stick was just straight. So indicating that temperatures hadn't changed much. And then all of a sudden, when we started burning coal, temperatures skyrocketed. There's a guy named Marshall Shepard on the other side that's what he said. Temperatures skyrocketed when we started doing that. But anyway, that of course was not true, and it's amazing that so many people believed it. And even the IPCC and the UN, they kind of pushed all their chips on this idea that temperatures skyrocketed when we started burning fossil fuel, but that's not what happened.
It is quite remarkable it's got this far. I mean, that's one of the things I write in the book. Like, it's just unbelievable that so many
Yes.
people have believed this and continue to believe it. It's that I saw a study once where they said that the easiest people to fool are academics because they believe the word of other academics. Do you think that is what's going on, or do you think some of them are aware it's a scam? I mean, how do you feel it even got this far? Because it is so preposterous when you look at it. Anyone with half a brain cell, can figure out this isn't true. So how has it got this big? Is it money, or what's the driver?
No, I do think the major driver is groupthink. That's what I think after looking at this for 20 years. There's this idea that academics, they're all kind of privately snickering at us and they know that the stuff they're saying is all BS. I don't think so. I think a lot of them, like Catherine Hayhoe, I think she actually sees herself as a savior of the world and she believes the stuff she's saying. And maybe even Al Gore as well. I can't get into their heads, but I think it's enormous amounts of groupthink. And Richard Lindzen has a great quote about this thing that academics are easier to fool than the rest of us. I forget the exact quote, but it's along the lines of what you said, that they have the trust in the experts. And maybe throughout their academic career, they have been rewarded for just regurgitating whatever they were told and not pushing back. So, yeah, I think academics are way easier to fool on many things than normal people. And I think a big part of this is that academics, it's easier for them to live in a modeled world, in just a world where there's no sanity checks with reality. But people who are plumbers and farmers and have real jobs and have to get real things done, they have to make things work in the real world. So they tend to think more clearly and they're more based in reality. I think that's a huge thing, to have some grounding in reality and some sanity check against just believing the models. It's just crazy that people believe in the models and they don't take the time to actually look at what is actually happening in the real world. Does the real world actually agree? They just think, well, the models must be right. Somebody really smart wrote them. They must be right. But we saw that in COVID too. We had all this modeling that was wildly wrong. Same deal.
Yeah, most of it came out of the UK, I think. So when COVID came along, so how far? So you'd gone down the CO2 rabbit hole.
Yep.
Had you thought to question anything else, or is it just that's kind of where it stopped off before prior to COVID?
No, I have to think back. I think it was mostly CO2. Like, I'm embarrassed by a lot of the other stuff that I believed as of 2020, early 2020, when people told me that breakfast was the most important meal of the day. I thought, okay, I better eat a good breakfast. I did that most of my life. And I forget, there's a long list of stuff that I believed. I was a big believer that fluoride must be good for me. There couldn't be any possibility that it wasn't because it had been tested. And same with vaccinations. I thought, well, the medical community, I had trust in the medical community. They wouldn't inject anything into kids unless it had been fully tested. So there's a long list of things that I believed. And yeah, COVID got me checking out. And I feel like now I kind of have to look at everything and for myself. And world history. I thought that what was in the history books, that must be what actually happened. But even Elon Musk has been saying that now you got to think about, okay, they're telling us the story about what happened in the different wars. And is that really the way it played out? So I am questioning everything pretty much.
Yeah, it's funny how it pushes you onto that journey because that was the fateful question I asked myself. Well, if COVID isn't true, then what else isn't true? And then there's just a million rabbit holes you can go down from there. So tell me about where you were during COVID and how long did it take you to realize that all was not as we were being told?
Let's see. I have to review that in my own mind. I was just sitting here minding my own business in Minnesota when COVID came out. I was watching basketball with my son, and that's when it really hit that they were just getting ready to play an NBA basketball game, and they were just ready to throw the ball up, but there was delay, and then they said, we're not going to play the game because somebody tested positive for COVID. And it just seemed like very shortly after that, kind of the U.S. shut down. And for me, it was when this basketball game wasn't played. And it was tournament season here in the U.S. My son was getting ready to play his high school tournament, and there were all these different tournaments going on. Just everything got shut down. And I believed in it. When I saw the videos of people dying on the streets in China for a while, I'm embarrassed to say, I thought, well, this must be this is the big one. This is worse than the 1918 flu. And I don't know at what point I figured out that it wasn't. They talked about the vaccine right away, and I was thinking, how can they just develop a vaccine and they know that it's safe for 5 years? How would they know that? So I was always skeptical of that part of it. But I believed in, I'm sorry to say, I believed in the lockdowns and stuff for a while. And I started hearing stuff from Pierre Corey. There was a bunch of these dissident doctors. I started listening to podcasts featuring dissident doctors. Edward Dowd coming in. He's not a doctor, but he had some great content. So podcasts woke me up. Certainly nothing that I saw in any mainstream way, but podcasts were huge in my figuring out that this thing was not what they told us it was.
Well, I was wearing a mask and following the rules for the first 3 weeks as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it is quite shocking. And how quickly did you realize the scope of just how dark this was? Because for me, I just thought, oh, they're going to make money on vaccines. That was my initial, like, yeah, this is all about money. But I didn't imagine it could be any worse than that. How long did it take you to figure things out? And what
Yeah,
was the
again,
trigger?
I'm embarrassed to say I think it took quite a while. I didn't get to where I am now. It took maybe a couple of years or something. That Yeah, I mean, I didn't check into the WEF and what's really going on with the UN. There was a time in the past where I thought, okay, the UN, that's a force for good and for peace and everything. I'm so embarrassed looking back at the whole thing. That does give me some sympathy for people who haven't even woken up now, because but for the grace of God, go I, or something. So it took
Yeah,
years.
I feel exactly the same.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's easy to be oblivious because I think the problem most of us have is we're not psychopaths. So you don't think in
Yes.
a
Yeah.
way that you're just very naturally trusting. And most people, I think, are honest, decent, true, and good.
Yeah.
And you can't imagine people actually wanting to do things that would cause harm just for money, control, and power. And so, what do you
Yeah.
remember what it was when you got to the WEF bit? Because for me, it was Sandy Adams who woke me up, and very early on, thankfully.
Yeah, I do remember Brett Weinstein on his Dark Horse podcast. He had Pierre Corey on there and Steve Kirsch. And I remember I was riding my bike listening to that, and it just seemed like that one interview really got me digging into all this stuff. And that might have been in 21. But yeah, I started just really digging into it at that point. But to get to the WEF stuff, et cetera, I don't know. I'm sorry to say I can't remember exactly when that happened, but that didn't even happen right away. But this whole idea that we have to demonize ivermectin, I mean, that was a big part of waking me up, because I read on Donna Laframboise's blog about ivermectin. And I put up a couple of innocuous tweets about ivermectin, and I got a 1 week ban from Twitter for just saying something about it's completely true about. I have to look it up. Something 100% true about ivermectin. I think Merck had statues, or Merck had admitted that ivermectin was a miracle drug, something about that. And just because I used that word, I got banned. That blew my mind, that there was so much pushback against this drug that's one of the most safe and effective drugs, I think. on the list. Some people are saying it's up there with penicillin. The whole idea that they demonized that and they said it was horse paste and everything, it was crazy. So again, I'm thinking, okay, what else are they lying to us about if they're willing to demonize this? It seemed like they were doing it just so they had a reason to push the vaccine. So then why are they pushing this not a vaccine, this gene therapy so hard? And I did end up getting up in front of thousands of people at the Berkshire Hathaway meeting in 2023 and asking Charlie Munger about his statement that people were crazy and ignorant and for not taking this gene therapy. And if he was in charge, it would be mandatory. So he's supposed to be the epitome of rational thought in the U.S., and he was completely crazy on the gene therapy. So at the Berkshire Hathaway meeting in 23, shortly before he passed away, I asked him about it. I asked him if he still thought we were crazy, and he said yes. He said,
Wow.
yeah, sure. Yeah, sure was his 2-word response about the people who hadn't taken the gene therapy. So he was like at the top of the mountain for me in terms of respect years ago, and now he's near the bottom of the mountain. It was so important that he got that so wrong. Because if that guy would have come out and said, let's be skeptical of this thing, I think that would have saved lots of lives, but he didn't. He was lazy and ignorant, and that makes me sad.
Well, did he have investments in pharmaceutical companies?
I don't know. Maybe.
I would
I don't know
imagine
the
they might
answer
be
to
in his
that.
portfolio.
Yeah. But I thought he was all about knowledge and integrity. He was like I said, my respect for him was so big, and it plummeted so much over that. I
Yeah,
guess
it
that,
is. It
yeah.
is quite a wrench when there's people that you've got on that little pedestal of like, wow, and then you see how they've responded over COVID. I mean, talk about true colors just came out everywhere, didn't it?
Yeah. He has this whole famous speech. It's something like 20 Principles of Human Misjudgment. I should know the name of it. It was from the 90s. I listened to it many times, actually, talking about the different ways that humans can misjudge situations. So he was supposed to be the guy who really knows how to rationally judge things and come out with the right answer. And for him he violated lots of those principles as you go down the list, as he totally misjudged the COVID thing. He was basically saying that when I was back in the Army, we just took the vaccinations because we knew someone else had tested them. We didn't question it. We shouldn't question this. So, yeah, he just got it so wrong. He violated his own principles. And I guess we all need to think for ourselves and trust in ourselves more than people who we think are experts. More and more, I keep coming back to that.
Yeah, that was one of my key learnings as well, that
Yeah.
trust in yourself, because it was so shocking seeing all these people, especially the famous ones, everyone pushing it, and you just think this is wrong. And it's hard to know who's been bought and paid for or who's just
Yes.
done. That's what it comes down to. So it is, and I think the more people trust their own intuition, and I do think that society is programmed. I mean, if you think about it, you mentioned Charlie Munger there and the army. I would
Yeah.
imagine that has an awful lot of you do as you are told.
I
That
would
is
guess. Yeah.
literally bashed into you. Same at school. There's a price to pay, isn't there?
Yes.
For any critical thinking or free thought, there's a price to pay for it. And a lot of people can't take the consequences of that free thought. It's often, I don't know about you, but a lot of people I met with sort of the black sheep of the family, the outcasts, those people that have been a little bit on the outside of society, they were the ones that saw through it the quickest. How did the people around you respond, sort of family and friends, to your questioning?
I've I'm very much a lone wolf. I got almost 100% pushback and are you crazy and trust the experts. I'm trying to think of anybody who was with me, but no, I wasn't. There were family gatherings I was not allowed to attend because I was not vaccinated. And yeah, it disappointed me that people were not thinking for themselves. I don't know what percent of people were ever thinking for themselves, but uh, it was not a great time. And a lot of people are coming around to my way of thinking, but I don't know if I've heard anybody say, you were right back then. I don't think that's happened, but uh, I think there is still a little even belief even now. I think some of the folks are still taking the shots even now, even number
Oh
8 or number
gosh.
10. Yeah. Yeah. That makes me sad too.
I mean,
Yeah.
did you actually lose friends over it, or did it just create a bit of a distance?
Nah, I lost friends. Yeah. I lost good friends over it. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
sad,
I think
yes.
there's
I
been a
know a
lot of
lot of
that too.
people.
Yeah. Yeah.
who have lost friends and family, some really heartbreaking situations. So it's taken a tremendous amount of strength for those that have pushed back and said, you know what, I'm going to follow my own instincts. Yeah, it is the big thing. But do you think, I mean, it's a hard question to answer, but do you think had it not been for the climate stuff and that good old woodpecker back in the day, do you think you would have gone along with it more? Or do you think that helped you see, hang on a minute, here we go again?
I think that did help me. I think that did help me question. I think I had a little leg up knowing that this other one peer-reviewed paper was a total crock. That helped me realize more quickly that other peer-reviewed paper could be complete crocks. So yeah, I think that did help.
So do you think you
Yeah.
say you're sort of a bit of a lone wolf? Has that been how you are with a lot of stuff, or is it just been the COVID and the climate?
I
Because I'm
mean,
trying to
yeah.
get you see if they what the common denominators are between the people that have cottoned on quite quickly versus those that are still resistant to it.
Yeah, I mean, going back to my normie days, I would say I was not a lone wolf at all. And I was in school, I was trying to get good grades and stuff, and I was just regurgitating whatever the teacher said and not trying to disagree with the teacher and all that stuff. I'm embarrassed to say. I mean, another part I wanted to mention here of me waking up was the whole financial thing about how the Canadian truckers, when people were donating to the Canadian truckers and they were getting their funds frozen or even taken away. I think RFK Jr. mentioned that too, that woke him up seeing that crazy stuff happening in Canada. That got me looking into money and got me into looking at the Federal Reserve and the money printing and whether whether Bitcoin itself actually can be a solution to that. So yeah, I think that got me looking at the whole issue of control, about globalism and control of us, and then looking at the 15-minute cities and all sorts of other issues. But how they have this whole digital world coming up here. I heard you mention this too, digital currency and the 15-minute cities and the facial recognition and the tracking, and how if you post the wrong thing on social media, you can't buy groceries and you can't travel, all that stuff that could be looming ahead of us. It's all kind of coming together for me now. But yeah, it was all about COVID, and COVID was a big part of the awakening. But what I've said before is that the elites went for the Great Reset here, and what they got is the Great Awakening. I really think that that's happened because you're an example of that. I'm kind of an example. And so many people, it might be hundreds of people, either online or in person, have told me some version of that they were normies at some point, and now they're questioning everything. I think there's so much of that happening. That makes me very, very happy that there's so many questions happening.
Yes, that's why I've written the book. Now feels the time, just to help speed that journey along. It's
Yeah.
interesting. If you can just wake up on one thing,
Yes.
it seems to be the catalyst. I mean, I woke up about health many years ago, and I'll be writing about this in book two because the doctors weren't able to help with quite a serious medical condition I had. So I had to get myself well. So I knew I still had a lot of respect for them at the time, but I knew they didn't know everything. So I very much trusted in my own guidance for health stuff. And when I sold my first house in 2011, I think it was, before I went traveling, I didn't know anything about investing. I thought, well, I really must, I'd made a good profit on it. So I bought Warren Buffett's books and, I started reading about investing. Anyway, I eventually came across to, oh gosh, I can't remember his name now, but he was, I think Rich Dad has promoted him, the guy that writes about silver. He's in
Oh,
America. But anyway, he wrote about gold and silver and what real true money is. So I was already awake back then on those two subjects, but it took COVID to be that third
oh yeah.
thing. So I kind of wonder just that was the biggie that really just took my rose-colored glasses right on off. But I wonder what it's going to take. Do you think it will be a war? What do you think will be the tipping point for most people?
Yeah, that is a great question. Before I forget.
So I hope you've enjoyed the first part of this interview. If you would like to watch the full interview, then do please subscribe to me as a paid subscriber on Substack, or alternatively, you can get it from my website, rachelmatthews.uk. So until next time, take care.